Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Lindo with StoryMoss, and I am really happy to be here with Sarah Hendel-Blackford. We are talking in ahead of the World Adaptation Forum happening later this month, the 23rd and 24th in Budapest, which is a really wonderful gathering, bringing all kinds of hearts and minds together to talk about collapse and collapsology and adaptation, deep adaptation. And so today we're just going to speak for a few moments about Sarah's inspiration for coming. And she is a director at the Accelerator for Systemic Risk Assessment. And you can introduce yourself in a moment, Sarah. But we will be talking about her work with youth and the more than human world. And as StoryMoss, we always like to bring the more than human voices into the conversation. So, um, Sarah, welcome and delighted to be with you. And thank you for making the time. And if you could please introduce yourself in the way that you would like to. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Megan. So I'm Sarah, and as you said, I'm Director of Systemic Risk Policy and Response at ASRA. ASRA stands for the Accelerator for Systemic Risk Assessment, and we're a UN Foundation initiative working all around the world at the global level with an amazing, gifted transdisciplinary network of risk practitioners around the world. And then my personal background is about 20 years in climate impacts and adaptation before moving into the world of disaster risk reduction, where I worked at the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction in Geneva before joining ASRA. And I'm based in Europe, down in the southwest of France in wine country.
Gorgeous. And I definitely want to ask you about that. But first of all, could you tell me maybe what has inspired you to come to the World Adaptation Forum? What draws you there to Budapest? Beautiful
That's a
Budapest.
Yeah, indeed. I'm also half Hungarian, but that's not the reason that's drawing me to the event.
Okay.
Um, but I would say there are many, obviously, conferences about uh, what we need to do to address the range of risks that we face around the world, be they man-made, be they from natural hazards and so on. But there are a few of them who are very explicitly and openly talking about what transformation involves. So a lot of the time it's kind of tinkering with existing systems or existing states and how could we nudge or move things better, whereas this event is about deep transformation. And ASRA is unashamedly, we're all about systems transformation. So taking a good, long, hard look at what we want to keep, what we need to move away from that fundamentally is harming us. And I mean us in terms of the human and the non-human in the largest sense. And then transforming to something perhaps altogether new. And I really am delighted that this whole agenda embraces the concepts of collapse and what that requires, helps us prepare for that to move towards transformation.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, really going deep and in a very
Yeah,
unflinching, wholehearted sort of way. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about the work that you do with youth? Because, I mean, obviously they're the ones growing up into this world
Mm.
that is experiencing, um, such deep shocks and risks and changes. So what does that look like in a nutshell?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it has lots of different strands to it. And from my perspective, it has a personal and a professional strand. So maybe starting with the professional. So at ASRA, one of the things we are very focused on is increasing and enhancing our capacities and capabilities to identify, assess, and respond to systemic risks. But none of us have been brought up in a sort of systems thinking manner. When I say none of us, that's a generalization, of course, but the vast majority of us. And our kind of governance systems, our financial flows tend to be often quite siloed. And so this idea of interconnection between different systems and how risks move across systems is really often missing. And I think that's really important. And then, therefore, in order to increase our capacities and capabilities, ASRA recognises we have to do that at all levels. So not just working at the multinational level or national sub-regional, but also across multiple generations. So we opened up the ASRA network membership to a next generation cohort about 18 months ago, with the idea of building the capacity of young professionals who are already doing great things in their field to think about systemic risk assessment, systemic risk response, but also to learn from them. So this engaging with youth is a very kind of two-way process. There's so much we can learn from beginner's mind, from the young, curious, inquisitive, who often have a different perspective, broader, more lateral lens. So it's a really mutually beneficial relationship. So that's one area. On the more personal side, I have been challenged to go outside of my comfort zone by my two amazing children, in as much as from when they were at primary school, and they're now at secondary and higher education, but from primary school age, they urged me to come in to their schools to talk very openly, honestly, and actively about climate change, and now more recently about systemic risks and the range of risks that young people face that they receive on their phone every day that worry them. But critically to talk about what can be done about those risks. So in my spare time, through the regular urging of my children, I have gone into their schools to really talk about these issues. So systemic risks from the age of 4 through to 18-year-olds. And that gathered its own life and went way beyond just their schools to other schools. And it's certainly putting me outside of my comfort zone, doing that in the small corner of France where I live, but it's incredibly energizing, and I learn so much. And I really want to impart a perspective that there are things we can all do, regardless of our age and stage in life. And really also show them examples of other young people and what they've done to inspire them to do more.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing and so inspiring because, it really strikes me that these intergenerational conversations, it can be difficult to talk about these themes, to find the ways to reach each other and share with each other what's really in our hearts and
Yeah,
minds as we see what's unfolding, and bringing in
yeah,
those different generational perspectives, like you say, is so important and so beautiful. And it feels like kind of finding a way to bring up something really, really important.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
great.
agree.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned that you're in the south of France, and I would love to hear about the work that you're doing there on the land and how the more than human perspective comes into your life. And
Yeah, that's lovely question. Something I could talk about at length. But I guess the essence of it is, yeah, we live in a rural part of France down the southwest, and uh, very lucky to be surrounded by a range of different mixed farming and agriculture, organic, biodynamic, and lots of innovations and experiments by the agriculture community here, which has inspired me to. I've always been a keen kind of kitchen gardener and gardener in general, but gone a bit broader than that. I did my own kind of biodynamic experiments to see what's this thing all about, this growing biodynamically. So that's been really interesting. But also we have a field where there was just one solitary tree there, and about 10 years ago we planted 180 shrubs and trees, and we have noticed over time how much insect life and bird life has increased just through doing that. And again, going back to system interconnections, the richness of the biodiversity that has happened over time. And then again, through the work with local schools and youth, I've been involved in various afforestation projects in the region with kids, which is just the most rewarding thing to be able to do it in one's spare time. So yeah, nature is very much at the heart of where we're lucky enough to live. So it's incredibly energizing. But I would also say, it's not just about all the lovely things. It's also an incredibly soothing resource to draw from during times of instability. So when things are very volatile in the world, in the wider world, when we know and we are seeing and we are hearing about systems collapse, biodiversity collapse, climate change tipping points being reached, and then the human element, it's a lot. And I think being able to submerge and surround ourselves in nature has a deeply calming and connecting influence, which gives me strength when things are tough.
Yes, yes. Connecting into that larger web of life and the, co-regulating the
Absolutely.
nervous system with all
It's so
different.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should add just one more thing. In our work as well at ASRA, we have explicitly challenged ourselves to examine what does it mean to take a nature-centric approach in our work. So what does it mean to remove the human and put species and the more than human element in the center of systemic risk assessment and how we respond to systemic risks. So we are actively currently challenging ourselves to see what that could look like and how would we begin to understand the needs of non-human species and how can we enable them, not just because of our interconnected codependence, but really recognizing the sanctity of nature in its own right. So there's a very strong nature-centric component in ASRA, led by my colleague Phil Tovey, which is really trying to push the boundaries and innovate in terms of what we could do as we navigate systemic risks.
Yes, that's so inspiring. And are you able to give like a tiny example of what that might look like?
That's a great question. So we have a project happening as we speak down in the southwest of England on the River Tone, Tone, and people can find out more about that on our website. But it's really engaging and re-establishing a community of individual people who don't know each other, but they live in the catchment area, and they have committed as part of this project to take on, learn, absorb, understand the needs of a particular species that lives in that catchment. And we're meeting on a regular basis, as I said, led by my colleague Phil Tovey, to really understand how risks show up for different species in this catchment and how species can and are responding to those risks. So it's really pushing the boundaries of human perception and our understanding and trying to go as far as we can into the sort of nature-centric non-human species way as much as we can.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Wow, really inspiring. Um, Wonderful. Well, before I let you go, I just wanted to see if you could share a reflection, just about your a little more about your inspiration going into this conference and how what you hope maybe can um, you have such beautiful things to bring, as does everybody coming into this space to share these deep adaptation ways of living with more joy, more courage, more curiosity, more kindness, and compassion, facing into whatever it is that's to come, and those deep uncertainties that lie there.
Mm.
Yeah, so maybe could you just share sort of a final thought or two of what it means to you to be part of this and to be bringing, you know, all of these experiences and inspirations to the gathering?
Absolutely. I would say it kind of goes back to the very first question we discussed. I think I'm really excited to be meeting a community that is very open, honest, and taking a wide-eyed look at what transformation requires. And that requires collapse as well as new skills and capacities for rebirth and new systems to take place. So I'm looking forward to meeting new and old friends. And I'm really grateful for creating that space for us to talk very openly about what is it that we need to know, how do we can we best prepare for that, and how can we help each other through that as well, recognizing there's trauma and loss involved in all of those conversations as well. So yeah, really excited to be going, and I think it will give me personally energy to keep on doing the work because it is hard work, but coming together physically together, I think certainly I personally find really energizing and inspiring. So I'm looking forward to learning as well.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been so lovely speaking with you and wishing you a wonderful adaptation forum.
Thank
And
you so much, Megan. It's
yes,
been lovely
yes.
chatting with you as well.
Great. And for everyone listening, you can join also, and you don't have to go to Budapest. Although, if you can, that would be amazing. But you can also join online, and we will include all the details of how you do that. So, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you to Sarah, and goodbye. Oh.